Today we're going to be tackling some root cause analysis. Root cause analysis is really great because it allows us to take a step back and work through the challenges that we're facing. So it's kind of a precursor to brainstorming and project management stuff that we've talked about in the past. And it's a really great topic to get in today. So Marcella, take it away.
Thanks, John. For those of you that weren't here yesterday, I'm Marcella. I'm in the central office and I support the legal and planning teams therein. And today we're talking about, as John said, root cause analysis. And we're going to start with the 5 whys, which is a staple, should be in everyone's toolbox, really classic tool. So what is it? It is a tool for root cause analysis and better problem definition. And it's really simple, which makes it really versatile. And it works for both individuals if you have a sort of very individual problem that is just something that you're dealing with at work or whatever. And it also works for groups if you have a larger problem that you're trying to brainstorm around, but you need to understand the root cause of that. So when to use it? Obviously, when you're looking for a root cause, or more generally, when you need to bring some context or nuance to a really kind of vague, big problem, something that you know, like this is problematic, it could be better, but I don't really understand what's causing the problem or what's causing it to be so difficult, the process to be so difficult, or something like that. If you find yourself asking questions like that, a root cause analysis is a really great place to start. And often a 5 whys is a great quick place to start. And then you can decide if you need to move on to another tool that's a little bit more complex. So I want to walk through an example. And it's all here, but I'll walk through it piece by piece. So, okay, example is, I keep slipping through my alarm. What is wrong with me? If I heard that, I might think, well, so here's the, if I didn't do a 5 whys root cause analysis, I might think, well, you must be really tired. And then I would jump right to the solution of you should just go to bed earlier and get more sleep. And then you'll be more likely to be able to get up with your alarm, right? That's what was my experience. But if you see, we go through the 5 whys, you'll find that we end up with a totally different root cause and a totally different solution. So if we ask the question, well, why are you sleeping through your alarm? The person might say, well, I don't hear it. Well, but why don't you hear it? Well, I keep it in the other room. Well, why do you keep your alarm in the other room? Well, so that I don't look at my phone and like scroll through TikTok before I go to bed. Oh, okay. So now we know that the phone and the alarm are the same thing, and that's our root cause. And then we would jump to a very different solution. It's not that the person isn't getting enough sleep. It's just that, or, maybe they're not getting enough sleep, but that's not the main root cause. A new solution for us would be that you just need to get a dedicated alarm clock for the bedroom so that you can hear your alarm and the phone is your phone and that stays in the other room. So this is a really oversimplified example, but you can see, like, the point is that if you don't spend the time to ask those 5 whys questions, and this was only 3 whys, sometimes it doesn't take all 5, you can end up at really different places for root causes, and then by, extension, and end up with really different solutions. So how to utilize it? I mean, we just walked through an example, but a couple of key things to help you get the most out of this tool, because it is really simple, but there's a few kind of pieces to it that are good to think about so that you really, you can use this tool to the fullest. So you can do this tool in person or virtual. This is a really easy one to do virtually because you don't need really anything besides somebody scribing. It's nice sometimes to see it, the answers written. So someone could just share their screen with a Word document. It can be very simple. Or you can do it in person with like a whiteboard or whatever. You can do it in a group, big or small. And like I said, you can do it individually, but just keep in mind that the right people need to be at the table, which we'll talk about in a second. So a little bit of preparation goes a long way for the 5 whys. One thing, skipping to the bottom bullet there, is to make sure that the right people are participating. So if you're dealing with a problem that's like kind of very personal, like it's just your own work, there's just one little task that you are like, this is really difficult, you can probably be the only person participating there. Maybe one other person can help ask the why questions. And you can do it on a really small scale like that. But if you're doing something that's like a bigger process that involves more people or more programs, it's important to make sure that you have folks from along the process at the table, just like a swim lane mapping, any of the other tools that we use. You want to have people who can speak directly to the different parts of the process at the table, just so somebody who is pretty far away, removed from one end of the process, may have a different idea of what the why answer is. Another good thing to do is if you are in a group, once you get together, set some ground rules. The example I showed was really simple, and it's rarely in practice quite that simple where somebody just has the one why answer off the top of their head. There's probably going to be some discussion. So setting some good group norms at the beginning is a good idea. And then I'd also recommend incorporating some silent reflection. So it's a good idea, once you have the sort of initial problem statement agreed upon, and you ask that first why, give everybody a minute or two to think about it quietly before you share it as a group. And then a couple of tips from the field. Do watch out for assumptions, stick to observable facts. And when people are answering why, make sure that those are really concrete, observable, like what's actually happening on the ground, and not colored or sort of overshadowed by really strong held assumptions or maybe feelings about, what's going on. And that's where a good facilitator comes in. And then be prepared to find that there's more than one answer to each why, and that's okay. That's reality, and you can still use this tool even though it's kind of a singular track. You can, if you want, and I'll put a link in the chat to a diagram that shows how you can branch off into multiple whys. But there's other tools that you can dive into to, capture that complexity. But for this one, for the whys, just try to pick with the group the sort of most likely or that sort of top answer to the why question. Pick that track and then see it through. You can always go back and do another track for the other answers to that why question. For example, in the alarm clock example, it may be that the person wasn't getting enough sleep, and that would be like another why track that you would go down. And this tool pairs really well with a whole lot of other tools. A couple of examples is the fishbone, which I think John's going to talk about next, which is like if you are finding that the problem is actually really complex and you're finding that when you ask those why questions, there's a lot of different lanes you could go down. A more nuanced root cause analysis may be good for you to do after the 5 whys. Scamper, which was or other brainstorming tool like the Lotus Blossom, or any other brainstorming tool. If you remember yesterday, I said that we used in that example when I was co-facilitating the Scamper, we actually used a 5 whys to help us get that how might we question at the beginning to sort of underline what that root cause was. And then the PDSA cycle is another thing. So you can also use the 5 whys to just, come up, like identify a root problem really quickly, like the alarm clock situation, and then kind of figure out a solution fairly quickly from that, and then try it. And then you use the plan, do, study, act cycle to evaluate later on, like, well, okay, did that alarm clock that I bought for my room, is that working, or am I still sleeping through my alarm? And then if you're still sleeping through your alarm, then maybe it's time to do another 5 whys and figure out what the actual root cause problem is now. And yeah, that's the 5 whys. Really simple, but there are a few key things that will really help you get the most out of the tool.
And Marcella, if I can just add, so Marcella mentioned using 5 whys in conjunction with brainstorming. So what's really great about that is when we brainstorm, we like to use how might we questions to frame our brainstorming exercises. And the question you ask is really important in the brainstorming solutions you come up with. So changing that question can dramatically change the nature of the brainstorming ideas you end up with. And 5 Whys is a really great tool for stepping up the level of questions you're asking. So if you're asking what are the ways in which I can get more sleep, that's very different than what are the ways I can wake myself up without my phone.
Totally.
And it can dramatically change those. And if you want to narrow the concepts of a brainstorming exercise, you can ask when or where or who. So those are all really powerful tools for manipulating a brainstorming question that I've found very useful.
Thanks.
Any questions for Marcella about the 5 Whys? Okay, thank you so much, Marcella. That was great.
Yeah.